Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're going to be providing an update on a company that we've talked about on the channel previously. The name of the company is Delic Holdings Corporation, and they just came out with some big news in the last couple of days that I wanted to address in this video. In addition to the news, they've just redone their investor presentation, so we're going to take a look through the deck and give you an update on a couple new stats and figures. So I'm super excited to get into today's video. Now before we do, please take a second to smash the like button, you guys. This is a super small cap company. It really helps get this content to other people like yourself who may find value. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below what you think of this Delic news, if you're currently holding shares, and how you think they stack up to the competition. Now without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we're going to be providing an update on Delic Holdings Corp. We've talked about this company a few times on the channel. I picked it up a couple of months ago. This one's super exciting. They just came out with some big news, two pieces of news to be specific that we're going to cover in this video. They've also updated their investor presentation, really nice new format. So we're going to go through some of the new content in that presentation later in the video here. But before we get into it, I did want to take a quick look at the chart. For those of you who maybe aren't super familiar with this company or maybe missed my last couple of videos on Delic Holdings. So I have the US listing up here. This trades on the OTC under the ticker symbol DELCF. They also trade on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the ticker symbol DELC. And you can see here, as of close on September 30th, they were up about 2% on the session and closed out just north of 24 cents US. And based on that close, they have about 60 million shares outstanding. You're looking at a market cap on these guys of about 14.5 million on the US side of things and about 17.5, 18 million on the Canadian side of things. So very small company, you guys. We're talking about a micro cap here, but this company has some big growth plans. And I think as we go through this presentation, you're going to start to see how some of these plans are really beginning to materialize here. So Delic is really involved in the psychedelic wellness space in a number of different avenues. So they've got a media division, they've got clinics, they've got research. We're going to talk about that in more detail here, but I wanted to jump over to their website quickly and just give you guys an introduction to the company. Again, if you've missed those initial videos, I would highly recommend you take a look. There's some great content in there and really helps paint the full picture of what Delic Holdings is about. But this page is super exciting because based on the news that we're going to talk about in a second here, Delic can now make the statement that they are the largest chain of psychedelic wellness clinics in the United States and really pursuing that goal of bringing psychedelic treatment to the mainstream society. And if you scroll down here, that really has to do with their health section here, specifically the acquisition of the Ketamine Wellness Center portfolio. And that's exactly the news we're going to talk about next up here. Now, before we get into that, I did want to quickly jump over to the YouTube page here, you guys. So this was the first video on Delic. You can see it came out about 2 months ago. Top stock under $1. At that point in time, they were trading at 26 cents Canadian. So if you were able to establish a position, you're up about 10% in the last 2 months, which is phenomenal. And if you scroll up here, you can see I also put out another video about 3 weeks ago, penny stock update on Delic Holdings. You can see they were up at 32 cents Canadian at that point in time. So those are the two videos that I would definitely recommend you take a look at. So moving along here, you guys, this is the big news that I wanted to break in this video. Delic to acquire Ketamine Wellness Centers Incorporated, which makes them now the largest psychedelic wellness chain in the United States. So massive milestone for this company. The news came out on September 20th, so about 10 days ago. They've already got an existing retail footprint of 12 locations, which are up and operational, with an additional 15 clinics in development. Now this acquisition of KWC really complements their previous acquisition of KIC, or the Ketamine Infusion Centers. And as a reminder, KIC actually had 2 clinics up and operational, so this is a great addition to their overall portfolio of wellness clinics. Now if you scroll down in the article, you can see they have operations in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, Texas, and Washington. So this acquisition really does expand the company in terms of the number of overall clinics, but also their geographic footprint and the number of patients or customers that they're able to serve across the United States. Now, these additional 15 clinics are expected to be up and operational within the next 18 months, which will bring the total Delic portfolio up near 30 brick and mortar clinic locations. Now, in terms of the transaction highlights here, you guys, KWC had 2020 revenues in excess of $3.5 million US, so this is really going to start to bolster the top line revenue for Delic. They're on track for $4.5 million in 2021, so you can see that great growth trajectory in their revenue. And that's going to fold in perfectly with the ketamine infusion centers, which we just mentioned, which has grown steadily over the last couple of years. And they're actually on pace to exceed $4.2 million in revenue since their inception in 2019. Now, in addition to the actual clinics, the KWC acquisition is going to include 60 medical professionals, so they get all of that experience, all of that tenure coming over to Delic, which is phenomenal. And as the CEO, Matt Stang, says in his comments here, this is a game changer for the future of health and psychedelic wellness in America. And really, I think a game changer for Delic overall. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out here, you guys, is the number of treatments administered. So KWC has actually already given out 60,000 treatments. We're going to look at the pricing on the various different treatment options later in the presentation, but keep that number in mind, 60,000 treatments delivered to date. And the other thing I wanted to mention is actually the terms of the agreement. So it's a $5 million US acquisition. 3.5 million of that is going to be paid upon closing date, with the remaining $1.5 million split up at a 12-month and 24-month interval, so 1 and 2 years out. The other thing that's awesome to see here, you guys, very similar to what they did with the acquisition of Kick, is they've actually put in a performance bonus dependent on the management team at KWC opening up additional clinics. So for each additional clinic that the team is able to open up, that's able to hit profitability and minimum revenue of $135,000 US for 3 consecutive months, the eligible members of the management team are actually going to earn a $100,000 US bonus. And these bonuses will actually be capped at $3 million US. So I think this is a great incentive to ensure that clinics continue to open, they continue to drive towards profitability, and super excited to see where we're sitting in terms of total overall clinics 12, 24 months from now as these locations continue to open up. Now, the other big piece of news that came out recently here was on September 29th. Now, obviously going out and making acquisitions like we just talked about isn't cheap, you guys. So Delic has now raised $7 million in the form of a private placement with a US institutional investor, which is really going to continue to fuel the growth of this company moving forward. And this one was super exciting to me for a couple of reasons, you guys. Number one, this was a single institutional investor. So $7 million is definitely no small sum of money. And that really speaks to the confidence that this investor has in Delic Corp. The other thing that was nice is they actually gave an average share price of 28.5 cents, which is very close to where Delic is trading right now. Oftentimes when you see these big private placements, they get a deep discount to current market value. So that was great to see that it's pretty much on par. They also got 38-cent warrants. So I think this should be a super profitable endeavor for this investor and really gives Delic the financial flexibility to be able to continue to finance these acquisitions down the road. So now that we've looked at the chart, we've talked about the recent news, we're going to jump over to the investor presentation. As mentioned, this was just updated in September. So to kick things off here, summary of what Delic Corp does. They're the leading psychedelic wellness corporation in the United States. They're committed to bringing safe, legal, and science-backed benefits of psychedelics to mainstream society and the US population at large. Our self-sustaining and owned ecosystem of brands educate, influence, develop products, and serve patients at scale, with the largest infrastructure of psychedelic wellness clinics based on that acquisition we just talked about. We're bringing psychedelic wellness to the masses by increasing patients at each clinic and increasing patient spend per visit. And that's what we're going to look at in a couple of slides here. Now, in our previous videos on Delic, I mentioned this is a conglomerate type of company. They've got a lot of different angles and elements to their business. So they've got the media division, the Meet Delic event, which is the premier in-person event in Vegas. They've got their Reality Sandwich digital magazine or website. They've got the Delic radio or podcast. They've got the health division here, you guys. That's really focused on the KIC or ketamine infusion centers and now the KWC acquisition, or Ketamine Wellness Centers. And those two pieces combine to form that national retail network or chain. And then they've also got their science or research division, which is branded under Delic Labs. And that's licensed to do research on cannabis and psilocybin. So I think honestly their portfolio, guys, is very diverse. They've got the media, which really brings people in, helps answer questions. They've got the clinics to actually treat people. And they've got the science division to push forward their portfolio of intellectual property and really drive that research and development. Now this slide is super interesting, and this actually talks about the finances behind these clinics and the actual treatment costs. And when you start to look at these numbers, specifically the setup cost here, you guys, of about $250,000, $250,000 US per clinic, the acquisition of KWC really does look attractive for Delic. Now clinics are expected to break even in approximately 6 months after opening, and the average revenue once they're up and running at full steam is about $1 million US, with a 25 to 30% operating profit. So you can see as they start to scale this retail network, you guys, they get 10, 20, 30 of these clinics up and operational. The numbers really start to add up quite quickly for Delic. Now in terms of the actual treatment costs, at this point in time, they're just doing the ketamine infusions. Those range from about $300 to $750 per session. We talked about that in more detail in the previous videos. And you can see here the company statement. We plan to open and operate 26 clinics in the next 18 months. So if you do the math on that, just from the ketamine treatments alone, the numbers look very promising. Now, in addition to that, they're also projecting to do psilocybin and MDMA treatments. And these are exponentially more expensive than the ketamine treatments. So psilocybin is expected to be about $10,000 per session. The MDMA treatments are expected to be $4,000 to $5,000 per session. So once you layer that into these clinics, not only are you providing more options for the patients to treat their ailments, but you're really expanding that revenue portfolio exponentially. So that being said, the clinics definitely are, in my opinion, the bread and butter of this company. And this is really where a lot of the tangible revenue is going to come from over the next couple of years. Now that being said, although most of the revenue is coming from the clinics themselves, there's definitely a lot of complementing assets at Delic. And that's what I want to talk about next here. So their media division, I definitely don't think this should be overlooked, you guys, because this is really what grabs the attention of a lot of prospective customers or patients that are maybe unfamiliar with the benefits of psychedelic wellness. And that's exactly what they mention here in point 1. So captive audiences, which they're driving to their clinics and their other own platforms. They've got high visibility on overall industry needs and developing trends in the psychedelic space. And through these platforms, they've actually got the ability to educate and influence these trends. So the Delic Radio podcast, they've had over 100,000 total streams, 43 episodes since February of 2018. The realitysandwich.com website, they've got over 5,000 original articles there, you guys, and almost 1.5 million views in 2020. And in addition to that, they've got an email list of 7,000 subscribers with over 115,000 unique opens. So a huge network and a huge sphere of influence, you guys, between these various media channels. Now, in addition to this, super exciting, it's coming up right away here, you guys, November 6th and 7th, 2021 in Las Vegas. The Meet Delic event, which is really a premier in-person event in the world of psychedelics. They're expecting around 2,000 attendees, which are going to range from investors, speakers, the general public, entrepreneurs. And this is really a cool and unique event for people to interact with the company and gain knowledge, ask questions about psychedelic wellness in general. So I'm super excited to see how this one goes and hear about the feedback after this event has been completed. Now, in addition to all of that we just talked about, you're also getting exposure on the science side of things here, you guys. So the intellectual property, the research and development through Delic Labs. And this is also a great way for the company to generate revenue. So you can see at the bottom here, a range of customers from biotech companies, alcohol, tobacco, instrument manufacturers, and now cannabis or MJ companies. And they're really focused on developing new or novel psychedelic products for the market that allow legal psychedelic treatments, along with research in various other spaces like cannabis or MJ. Now, another thing that's super attractive about this component of the Delic portfolio, you can see here, Delic Labs has actually been profitable since it was founded. So that's great to see here, you guys. They're pushing forward the research, but they're also bringing in money for the company and turning a profit. So to wrap things up here, you guys, I've got two more slides for you. This one I thought was super important just to give a visual demonstration of where these clinics are located now with the addition of the KWC acquisition. And then we've got a great slide to end things off that actually compares Delic to some of the other operators in this space. So this slide here, you guys, you can see claim to fame, the largest retail and physical footprint in all of the United States here. The ketamine wellness centers, as mentioned, 2 locations in Arizona, Denver, Chicago, St. Paul, Seattle, Dallas, Houston, Jacksonville, and Las Vegas. So some of the biggest cities in the United States. They've got operations already up and running. In addition to that, you can see the ketamine infusion centers in Bakersfield and Phoenix. And then as mentioned, those 15 new locations that are currently in development. So very well diversified across the US and really gives access to a huge segment of the US population that are looking to take advantage of these type of treatments. So this slide here, you guys, I thought was a perfect way to end out this video. You can see on the left-hand side here the various companies that operate in the psychedelic wellness space. We've talked about a couple of these on the channel. So obviously Delic Corp is first up here, you guys. We've talked about Field Trip Health on the channel as well. Numinous Wellness, Ketamine One, Braxia, and Novamind. So all these companies, although they're in a similar space here, you guys, do have slightly different business models. So you can see Delic focused on the clinics and media. Field Trip Health, Numinous, and Braxia are really focused on the clinics and drug development, while Ketamine One and Novamind are focused on the clinics and contact research. So it is starting to become a somewhat competitive space. However, most of these companies are focused here in Canada, with only Delic and Novamind having 100% US exposure. Now what's super exciting to me here, you guys, is when you start to look at the valuation of Delic compared to some of these other operators. Keep in mind this is the biggest portfolio of clinics in the United States. Delic's coming in at about $25 million. You can see the asterisk there. That's based on the conversion of various different voting shares, so a little bit higher market cap than we talked about in the intro. But regardless, you guys, when you start to compare this to any of these other companies, Delic looks extremely attractive from a valuation perspective. Now, they don't have any meaningful quarterly revenue at this point in time. We're going to need to wait to see that KWC acquisition fold in. However, if you recall that initial news article we talked about, KWC is on pace to do $4.5 million US this year, which works out to about $5.5 million Canadian. You can see all these figures are in Canadian funds. If you divide that $5.5 million by 4 quarters in a year, you're looking at about $1.4 million per quarter. So miles ahead of Field Trip Health, Numinous, Braxia, and pretty much on pace with Novamind. The other thing that's super encouraging, you guys, here is if you look at the number of US locations that are open. Now keep in mind some of these are focused on other countries. But regardless, Delic has way more locations than any of their competitors, not to mention the 15 additional locations that are currently under development. So overall here, you guys, I think this is massive game-changing news for Delic Corp. We talked about this company's desire to really expand their portfolio of clinics in some of our other videos. Now we're seeing that the proof is actually in the pudding, and that's exactly what Delic Corp is actually doing. So I'm super excited to continue to watch as this company grows. For full disclosure, I currently do not hold any shares of Delic Corp, but this is definitely one that's on the top of my watch list here, you guys. As always, I'll keep you posted on if and when I do decide to pull the trigger, but a lot of exciting news going on at this company. And I'll be sure to continue to update you as new developments and news continue to come out. Now, before I let you go, please make sure you smash the like button, you guys. This is a small cap company. It really does help get this content to other people like yourself who may find value. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And on a final note, thanks so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.